In 1945, Attlee's Labour government had nationalised the commanding heights of the economy, bringing core industries into state ownership. For Thatcherites, these state industries were now the primary target.
A whole lot of people who were left to centre thought that nationalisation was Britain's great gift to the world. And one of my phrases at the time was that having exported the disaster of nationalisation to the world, Britain should offer them the antidote. It was the decent thing to do, to say, we're very sorry, it didn't work.
So the whole efficiency of nationalised industries was running down. Why should they be efficient? They had access to the treasury purse.
Thatcher wanted to end their dependence on government subsidies and submit them to the discipline of the marketplace.
The nationalised industries fell to pieces. They lost huge sums of money. They put the prices up massively and still weren't able to make a profit. They were bleeding the nation dry, the taxpayer dry, and they weren't doing a good job for their customers.
The coal mines and the miners' union became Thatcher's biggest challenge.
The coal miners represented the last bastion of the socialist mindset in the UK. One of the most singularly important economic/political events for the world economic system was Margaret Thatcher's government's confrontation with the coal miners.
We were quite clear, uneconomic pits must close. You could not go on pouring money into uneconomic pits, it was taxpayers' money.
If you look at our coal industry, the coal is very deep in the earth. It is hugely expensive to get out.
75% of Britain's coal mines were losing money. It took government subsidies of $3 billion a year to keep them going. But these statistics were seen as irrelevant by men like Ken Capstick, one of the radical socialists who led the miners' union.
What they would say was that in America, for instance, coal produced at the pit head was cheaper than coal produced at the pit head here.
The union leaders argued that the government's subsidies were money well spent if they kept 180,000 miners at work and able to feed their families.
Miners used to say, and I can remember them saying it, while ever I've got these, I'll always have a job.
It was an historic grudge match. Both sides knew the miners had brought down Ted Heath's Conservative government 10 years earlier. The fiery Marxist who led the National Union of Miners said no mine should be closed until the coal ran out.
To declare official, in accordance with Rule 41, the strike action is now...
The issue before our members is very clear. They either accept the policies of the Coal Board and the government, which will result in the loss of 70,000 jobs, or alternatively they stand on their feet like men, they fight, defend their jobs, defend their pits and defend their dignity.
The strike was an epic clash of values, which symbolized the wider battle of ideas. Socialist against capitalist, free market against state ownership. And it was a question of power. Who ruled Britain? Illegal mass picketing outside working mines led to violent clashes with the police.
It was the next thing to a war. We were faced with an enemy, and that enemy was out to destroy our livelihoods, out to destroy our pits, out to destroy our communities and what our communities stood for.
For more than a year, the miners held out, until internal rifts and the desire of many to return to work brought the walkout to an end.
And then, suddenly, they collapsed the strike. And the most powerful union, with the most militant leader, had failed.
Britain has changed. Today, less than 3,000 work in the mines.
The political consequences of the failure of the strike were incalculable.
The coal mining strike of the early 1980s was a tragedy for so many of the mining families that were involved in it.
Perhaps the greatest political impact was on the Labour Party that had all along opposed Thatcher's free market policies.
I came into politics as someone who lived in an area which was an old mining community. The problem for the left in the past was they equated the public interest with public ownership and public regulation, and therefore they assumed that markets were not therefore in the public interest. What we have had to explain both to ourselves and to the country, and now I believe it's possible to explain this to the rest of the world as well, is that markets are in the public interest.
One of the most important things that the government of Margaret Thatcher does is invent this thing called privatization. That is taking these state-owned companies, these nationalized industries, and selling shares to the public.
One by one, the Thatcher government put the commanding heights of the British economy up for sale. Electricity, telephones, oil, gas, coal, steel, trains and planes, even water. Before long, 2/3 of the state-owned industries were removed from government control and sold off into the private sector. Who should control the commanding heights, governments or markets? In Britain, that battle was over.
Watch all of Commanding Heights online at pbs.org.